gonna work. Technology. So hello, Instagram over here, and hello, everyone else over here. I'm going to be talking about how to personalize any language learning resource. And I wanted to test out, because I haven't done a little kind of multiple live thing in a while. So I wanted to test it out and see if it still works. So I can see it seems to be good. We're getting there, we're getting there. But yeah, if you are here and you're joining and you can see me and you can hear me, let me know so that I know this is working. And okay, I think we're good. So let's get started. So I want to talk then about how to personalize any language learning resource, because I think a lot of the time it's very easy to come across stuff and then feel like, oh, and it just gets you rolling your eyes and you're like, this is so outdated. Maybe it's a little bit sexist, maybe a little bit racist, or it's just plain like, oh, we wouldn't say this anymore. And it just kind of makes you feel a bit uncomfortable. Well, that's fine. And you can totally like abandon stuff. But also sometimes this can be a bit more of an opportunity. And plus, a lot of the time, if we're looking around and we're wanting to start learning a language, it can be quite a kind of barrier to entry. If we're like, okay, I need to go out and buy all the new books that are like the latest stuff and whatever, that can be a real barrier to entry for a lot of people. And so I feel like there's something wonderful about what's already accessible and what is maybe like secondhand and that kind of stuff as well. So that's why we're going to talk about this. And there's 4 real kind of core steps to this. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and this is really what it kind of, comes down to. So the first thing is to take only what you need. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by this. So when I was learning Guarani, the very, very beginning, I had not much to work with, right? Because being on the other side of the world, like this not being a very widely studied language, there wasn't much out there. And the closest thing that I had to like a course was this old PDF designed for Peace Corps volunteers. And it was made, I would say, a long time ago. And on page 1, it's teaching how to say hello. And it talks about Indigenous languages as Indian languages, and even creates this kind of like, here's a way to remember how to say hello, that just makes you go, oh, no, I'm not even going to share that bit with you. But, as much as that gets you sort of rolling your eyes, you don't have to take that with you. You can take only what you need. And so, further down the page where it's literally teaching me the bit that is how to say hello, that's the thing I'm more interested in. That's the thing that I want to be taking away and learning from and using, And so really just taking what you need and taking a moment to acknowledge, yes, these are my own beliefs and facts, perhaps, about the modern world. And yeah, of course, we all, believe that we are in the right all the time and everything, right? But just acknowledging that and then taking a moment to recognize that what you're encountering now is different to your own perspective, right? And that is sometimes okay, sometimes not okay, but it's still existing. And so recognizing that you've encountered something different and or previous, perhaps it's not current, and then consider that an insight into how things have changed, especially if we're talking about things that are a little bit older, resources that maybe you've picked up secondhand. And you can use this then to make you more aware and to kind of consider the context that this was created in and how things perhaps have changed in terms of how we talk about things, so that's the first step, is to take only what you need. It's very easy to get stuck in the anger or the dismissal of stuff, but there's a lot that actually can be useful from this, right? Step 2 then is get creative. So this is now where we've gone, okay, I'm just going to take what I need from this. I'm not completely attached and connected like a little umbilical cord to this resource. Now it's time for me to get a bit more creative with things. And again, Guarani is a good example of this in my experience, where I said that there wasn't much, right? One thing that there was Duolingo. Like, how crazy is that, right? You feel like, oh, there's no, kind of courses and whatever, but there's a Duolingo taught in Spanish. Brilliant. Now, I'm not like anti Duolingo. I wrote about this on the blog a month or so ago, but I've never really like used it, like proper sort of in full swing to learn a language. I did the Esperanto course, but I've never kind of gone, full much further until Guarani. And it would have been really easy for me to go, well, that's too easy, that's too basic, it's not what I want, and just ignore it. But actually, I decided instead, I'm going to get creative with what I do have available here. I'm going to get creative with how I'm using, in this case, Duolingo. So some ideas to get you started, right? Speak the stuff aloud and just literally bringing that thing to life. If you've got like an old PDF or a dusty old book, just by reading what you see on that page aloud, you're bringing it alive, and you're giving yourself also a chance to get really comfortable with speaking without having to wait for like your next exchange or your next lesson, because so much speaking practice happens when you're on your own, right? And the way that I think about this is, imagine that you're learning to play a musical instrument. Would you think, oh yeah, I'm learning, I've read all about how to play, and I'm just going to get on stage next week? No, that would be crazy. You wouldn't do that, right? So instead, you would perhaps read a bit about how to play the instrument, right? All of that stuff that you need to know. But then you're going to practice on your own in your room where no one, or maybe a few angry neighbors, can hear you. And then you're going to get on the stage and you're going to be performing. So if you think of your interactions with people in this language as the performing bit, we need that bit in the middle. We need that bit when we're on our own, we're in a sort of very safe, comfortable place that we can practice speaking aloud. So this is one of the easiest ways to just bring any resource to life and make it much more personal. Write things down as well. So another sense of like taking it from where it exists and putting it somewhere else, but then also thinking about, how can you adapt what you're writing? So altering one or two words just to give you some different alternatives. So maybe if you've done a little bit, an activity about, I don't know, food, right? Easy example. And it teaches you how to say, I would like a paella. And you're like, okay, great, but I don't eat paella. And it's like, I would like tapas. And you're like, great, but I don't, okay, I already knew that word, right? What other food words do you know, or do you want to know, that you can be bringing in and changing that structure? I would like a, and then other things. Is it just food, right? Are there other alternatives that you could be using that same structure for? And thinking about how you can then adapt, and doing this the other way around as well. So putting, like individual vocabulary into those structures that you already know. So if you already know how to say, I would like, then what about this new vocab that you've learned, right? How can you put that into the structure? Do you see what I mean? So it kind of works both ways, and it's the easiest way to kind of get creative with what you're doing. Step 3, this is where it gets really important. Decenter yourself, right? It's very easy to feel like I am the center of my language learning world. Everything should revolve around me. Everything should feel good to me. I want it to feel like, yeah, I'm here, I'm ready. But actually, like, I'll give you an example. I love Teach Yourself books. And so when I got Teach Yourself Complete Indonesian, I was really excited to get going, right? Because I'm thinking, yes, this is me. I'm away. Here I go. I open it up, and the dialogues and the kind of stories that they're referring to throughout the thing are about businessman Ken and student Mike. And I'm like, well, neither of those is really me, right? Well, at this point, it's very easy to then go, oh, that means this resource isn't for me. Or even worse, we tell ourselves that I'm not for this resource or for this language, and I don't have a place at this table of learning this language. And we need to get out of our heads a little bit, right? And come down from our little high horses and decenter ourselves, because this is a chance to recognize the scope of all language learners, right? Not just ourselves. So acknowledge this as an opportunity. And we're taking them what we worked on in step one a little bit further here, right? So using a resource that doesn't totally align with where we're at is much more enjoyable when we see it this way. When we see it as an opportunity rather than a frustration. So we can use this to consider what this might tell us about social dynamics. Like I said, expanding on what we did in step one, we're now thinking, okay, so if the character in the dialogue has said just a housewife about his wife, is that like, oh, well, that's sexist? Or is it perhaps more of a reflection on kind of social dynamic, cultural norms associated with the language that you're learning, right? Because there's that angle as well that it could be. And if that's the case, this gives us the chance to research into the culture. Language and culture, like best buds, they're never apart. You know, they've got the little half heart necklaces going on. We can use this as a chance to dig deeper here and to learn more about the cultures associated with the languages that we're learning. And then, of course, if you do that and you're like, oh, the just a housewife thing, that's pretty normal, it's pretty sexist in this place, there's going to be some kind of counterculture. Anytime there's rules, there's rebellion, right? So how can you go a little bit further and find the people that kind of agree with and like share your thoughts and your beliefs in the language as well, right? There's always going to be something there that exists. And finally, step 4, recenter yourself. Okay, so it's really important we do that first bit, that we take ourselves out of the situation, that we kind of decenter and we just go, okay, this isn't necessarily for me, right? Like specifically me, my exact experience, that doesn't mean I can't use it. Then we come in and we recenter ourselves and we think, okay, how can I use this? What can I do to make this work for me? Number 1, reshape everything, right? The dialogues and activities. What's your situation? How is your situation different? So, if you're like, okay, businessman Mike, right? And I'm thinking, well, I'm not really businessman Mike, but I might be going on like a trip to like a language event somewhere, right? So that's kind of similar situation where I might arrive, someone might be there to meet me, that kind of thing. So how can I change the dialogue to fit that potential scenario that's more relevant to me? And as we're doing this, we're probably going to be doing something really cool that I highly recommend, and that's learning your own personal vocab, right? And then having the chance to apply it. So like, it's great when we go through and we have that, like the food, I would like a paella, tapas, da, 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 da. That's great. But actually, if you eat none of that stuff and you have lots of allergies or, lots of food preferences or something like that, you're going to want to learn how to talk about that stuff as well in the language so that you can express yourself in the ways that you need. So learning your own personal vocab and then applying that into these things that you have been using and, kind of manipulating it all so it fits is a really, really great, method and approach. And then finally, when we're sort of decenter and then recenter, this allows us to maintain a comfortable distance from a resource, right? We're not tethered. We're not attached, and we don't have to work through this one resource like completely and fully and because we don't feel that same 100% this is me connection. And actually this can be a good thing, because this then allows you to explore a little bit more, play with different things, and again, get creative and take only what you need from it. So it's always worth considering these things if we're thinking like, is this a good resource? Well, it may not be the best resource, but nothing is the one best resource. So what can you do with it if this is what you have in your hands, right? So hopefully this has been a helpful little boost if you've maybe got something on the shelf and you've kind of gone, I don't know if that's going to be a good book. I don't know if I want to explore that one. It's like, I don't know. Hopefully this has given you something to work with to get started and to personalize any language resource. Okay, so I hope that the tech has worked and you can see me and hear me over here. And I hope that over here I can see it's working on Instagram, which is good. Yeah, I'll be back very soon to share a little bit more. I've just got back, what day is it today? Friday. So like Wednesday, I started working again after a bit of a summer break, quite a lighter kind of summer break. And then I was decorating my office. It's still a little bit echoey and stuff, so I'm excited to finally be back and talking to you and sharing stuff as well, which is really cool. So have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll speak to you soon. If you have any questions, do drop me a DM. I am open to talking. I love to talk about this stuff. I'd love to know as well how you personalize your own resources. Let me know, and we'll get chatting, and I'll speak to you soon. All right, bye.